The Minority Caucus in Parliament has expressed dissatisfaction with the silence of the government on issues concerning the economy. Dr. Anthony Akutose, a member of Parliament who also serves on the Finance Committee, at a news briefing in Accra on Thursday, urged the managers of the economy to explain the true state of the economy to Ghanaians.
The Minority Caucus held a news conference following the assessment on Ghana's economy by the International Monetary Fund (IMF). An IMF report disclosed that Ghana's economy slowed down due to huge domestic and external debt, as well as the irregular supply. Based on data for the first 3 quarters of 2013, the report estimates a growth of 5.5%, well below the levels of recent years. On the fiscal side, revenue shortfalls, overruns in the wage bill and rising interest costs pushed the 2013 deficit to 10.9% of GDP versus a target of 9%. However, the IMF has proposed some measures for government's consideration to address macroeconomic imbalances. These include introduction of selective tax rates, higher excise tax on specific products, higher tax on real estate, reduction of wage cost, non-replacement of departing public sector employees in overstaffed areas, and reconsideration of a windfall profit tax on mining. The Minority Caucus see this situation as worrying, since it can create serious implementation problems. To them, the early government tell Ghanaians about what is really happening, the better. According to them, the hardship faced by Ghanaians is getting worse as the cost of living rises every day. They added that the layoffs keep occurring in every sector of the economy, with the currency depreciating and the inconsistency of light outs.
Government should accept that the nation is a crisis, that sacrifices will have to be made, but disclose to us what are the issues. You owe people money, how much, who? If you are going to sack people, when? Who are you going to sack? So that people begin to understand.
Dr. Akutose said government cannot discuss issues with IMF and expect Ghanaians to adopt whatever agreement that will be reached. Meanwhile, the Finance Minister, Mr. Setekpe, answered questions on the step the ministry is taking towards the sustainability of the implementation of the single spine.
We are implementing the GIFMI system for budgeting and financial accounting. The payroll will now form an integral part of the GIFMI system. And the payroll system itself is also being sanitized with respect to updating and reconciling employees' database and identifying possible double mechanization of employees.
The Minister for Food and Agriculture, Mr. Clement Humado, explained to the House the pricing policy of cashew production in Ghana. He said there is no cashew pricing policy in Ghana, adding that the ministry's role is to facilitate the price negotiation and act as an umpire for producers, processors and exporters to agree on a common price.
Chocolates and the Blue Sky, a book that highlights the differences between Japanese and Ghanaian culture from a Japanese perspective, has been launched in Accra. The wife of the Vice President, Mrs. Matilda Emisa Arthur, who witnessed the launch, stressed the need for literary works to be celebrated and patronized. Theodora Amedeto reports.
Chocolate and the Blue Sky recounts fond memories and experiences that a Japanese family had when they hosted a Ghanaian, Mr. Chris Kog Feruta Bene. Mr. Feruta Bene was then on a training program in Japan in 1999. The book was originally written in Japanese some 15 years ago by the author Kaoru Horigome, whose young daughter, referred to as Shuji in the book, was close to the Ghanaian and asked many questions so that she could understand the Ghanaian culture. The author admitted that the time her family spent with a Ghanaian, fondly called Chris-san, meaning Brother Chris, left a lasting impression on her. She learned to appreciate the importance of taking pride in one's country, show love for the family, and be fair to all. The event at the British Council in Accra was to launch the English version of Chocolate and the Blue Sky.
I want to urge you all not only to read, to buy, but to really get into it so that you can also pass it on.
The English translation was done by Koko Nikai, the wife of the Japanese ambassador to Ghana. She said she translated the story into English so that both countries can share and understand the different cultures. She said Japan shares a sense of familiarity with Ghana through chocolate. Ghana, meaning chocolate bar in Japanese, is a household name in Japan, and 70% of cocoa beans imported into Japan comes from Ghana. President John Mahama wrote a brief remark on the book. He disclosed that he lived with Shuji and his family some years ago, and that despite the fact that Japan and Ghana are far apart geographically, the two nations have maintained a productive and enriching relationships. The wife of the Vice President, Mrs. Matilda Imisa Arthur, described the book as a must-read.
It's an interesting book. Easy to read. Once you start, you wouldn't like to put it down. And it's very, very practical. It's very friendly. You would love it and even ask that, why is it so small? Is the story finished? At the end, that's what you say. But it will interest you to know that whether you are in Japan or Ghana, you live under the blue sky. Parents, don't think it's just for your children. We all need to be educated.
A copy of the book was sold at the launch at 20 Ghana cedis. Meanwhile, copies are available at the British Council and in bookshops at 15 Ghana cedis. The publishers of the book, Smartline, intends to circulate copies of the book across the country. 500 copies would be distributed to 10 selected basic schools in the 10 regions of Ghana. Theodora Medeto, GBC 24, Accra.